Ну, из крайнего, что очень запомнилось, ликвидация прорыва в районе населенный пункт Грайворон Белгородской области. Экипажем было уничтожено 4 танка противника и до 50 человек живой силой. Уничтожение водного десанта под Энергодаром в октябре 2022 года. Экипаж мой награжден орденом мужества и медалью Нестерова. Родные и близкие полностью меня поддерживают, переживают, конечно. Наше дело правое, победа будет за нами.
In the Avdiivka direction of the front, the situation of the armed forces of Ukraine continues to get worse increasingly quickly. At the moment, the main hostilities are unfolding in such settlements as Berdichi, Semenovka, and Umanskoye. A few hours ago, representatives of the Russian military department confirmed that the armed forces of the Russian Federation took control of the right part of the southern bank of the Dernaya River, and came close to the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, located 500 meters from the village of Umanskoye. Thus, it can be stated that Russian troops have launched active combat operations intending to capture this village. In Semenovka, the Russian army continues to own the initiative. It is reported that the Russian army is pressing on the enemy around the perimeter, forcing him to retreat in a westerly direction. As of April 6, 2024, a quarter of the territory of the village of Semenovka is under the control of Russian troops. As for the village of Berdichi, there is a certain degree of uncertainty. The fact is that war correspondents from both sides continue to report completely different information regarding the situation in this village. Some claim that the Russian troops managed to gain a foothold in the north of the village, on Kazbarova Street. However, there are also those who refute this information. According to them, the Russians are still trying to gain a foothold in the northern part of this settlement. Perhaps this confusion is due to the fact that videos with geolocation of military operations get into open sources with a delay of 3-4 days. At the same time, it is also worth noting the statements of Western analytical centers regarding the operational situation in the Avdiivka direction of the front. In particular, American experts from the Institute for the Study of War, citing their own sources in the Ukrainian General Staff, said that Russian troops continue to advance westward, in the area of settlements such as Semenovka and Umanskoye. According to them, despite fierce resistance from the Ukrainian Armed Forces, the Russians managed to advance 600 meters deep near the village of Semenovka, and 830 meters southeast of the settlement of Umanskoye. Moreover, American military experts, hardly hiding their anger, also admitted that Russian troops had taken control of about 30% of the territory of the village of Semenovka. Meanwhile, Ukrainian military expert Sergei Zgurets made a rather bold statement regarding American Abrams tanks. In particular, he said that American tanks turned out to be absolutely ineffective in the confrontation with Russian troops. He made this statement referring to the words of a Ukrainian tankman with the call sign Azimuth. According to this Ukrainian tankman, the Russians were able to completely neutralize the threat from American Abrams tanks with the help of their anti-tank complexes. He admitted that the armed forces of Ukraine are forced to use American Abrams tanks as self-propelled guns, being at a great distance from the enemy. However, these forced measures also do not save Abrams tanks from complete destruction, as Russian drones discover and destroy these tanks even in the depths of the enemy defense. Meanwhile, in the Zaporizhzhia direction of the front, the situation of the armed forces of Ukraine also continues to deteriorate rapidly. Even though the armed forces of Ukraine are not experiencing a shortage of manpower and shells in this direction of the front, the Russian army continues to displace the remnants of the Ukrainian armed forces along the operational line of Rabotino-Verbove. Moreover, Russian troops also managed to occupy and hold new positions to the northwest of the settlements of Molotokh and Verbove. In Rabotino itself, the Russian army continues to control the southern part of the village. At the same time, over the past 8-10 days, the number of strongholds captured by Russian troops in this direction of the front has doubled. Commenting on this situation, the representative of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Natalia Dumanyuk, said that the Russians had completely changed the tactics of warfare in this direction of the front. According to her, the Russian army has completely stopped using heavy equipment, relying only on separate assault groups and combat aviation. And judging by what is happening on the battlefield, this tactic has already yielded results. As it turned out, the Russian High Military Command deployed the best and most powerful forces of the Russian army in the Zaporizhzhia direction of the front. In particular, we are talking about Spetsnaz Viking and units of the 247th Guards Regiment of the Airborne Forces. As it turned out, in the last 10 days alone, Russian Spetsnaz was able to capture about 8 strongholds of the armed forces of Ukraine on the so-called Rabotino Ledge. In many ways, this was made possible thanks to the coordinated actions of combat aviation and the fighters of the Russian Spetsnaz. According to war correspondents, Russian Spetsnaz is attacking the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine immediately after the work of combat aviation. Moreover, it was even recorded several cases when Ukrainian soldiers fled from their positions knowing in advance that their stronghold would be stormed by Spetsnaz Viking. Let me remind you that Spetsnaz Viking was created 31 years ago and is considered one of the most experienced and powerful combat structures of the Russian forces. Spetsnaz Viking is part of the Federal Service of the Troops of the National Guard of the Russian Federation. The fighters of this Spetsnaz have dozens of military awards for bravery and for services to the fatherland, which they received during the fighting in the hottest spots of the world, including Ukraine.